Strand. All right. Welcome, Causaholics. Is that what we settled on? I think that's what we settled on for what I'm calling my people.
Hmm.
Um, so, welcome to the Perfectly Fine Neighborhood Table of Contents announcement. My name is Stephen Kozeniewski. I am an author of horror and science fiction. Um, I'm going to ask Wile E. Young, can you mute your mic when you're not talking?
Sure.
Okay. Let's see if that's a little bit better. Okay. All right, I think that's a little bit better. Ooh, we've got another special guest. Okay. Hello, special guests. To all the special guests that I get not get to talk to before the stream started, we are going to do some introductory material, what the Hollywood types call filler, and then we're going to go through the table of contents in the order that I put on the chat there. And we're going to bring each of you on to talk about your stories, talk about your backgrounds, and field any questions if we have them. So, with that being said, we already have questions and comments. All right. Matthew Wilderson says, "Hey, everyone." Hey, Matthew Wilderson. Eric
Hello, Eric
Smith
Smith.
says, "Hello. Hello, Eric Smith." Sean Isget says, "Hey guys." Hey, Sean. Oh, and our good friend Amanda Headley says, "Hello." Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming on. So that answers all of my questions regarding are you on? Can you hear me? Leave something in the contents. Oh, and Sean Stanford says, "Woohoo. I like the enthusiasm, Sean." All right. So let's just go through this first part here. Introduction. So, like I said, I am an author of horror and science fiction. I am one of the creators of the Perfectly Fine House, which is, of course, the progenitor for the Perfectly Fine Neighborhood, which we're all here to talk about tonight. And I'm very excited to be here, very nervous, as I mentioned in a couple of the posts tonight. But let's turn over for some dark bleedings to our goat leader, Kayleigh Dobbs.
Hello. Hello, I'm Kayleigh Dobbs, formerly Kayleigh Edwards until recently. If you've seen me around on the interwebs, and I've been working with Stephen and Wile E putting this anthology together. And I'm an aspiring author of horror, trying to be anyway. And I also run a review site called Happy Goat Horror. So send me all your stuff, but that's nothing to do with this. I just thought I'd shamelessly plug my own website.
There will be no plugging of our own websites here. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think that's my introduction done. I haven't got anything interesting to say besides that at the moment.
Okay, great. Then let's kick it over to the real life inspiration for Futurama's hedonism bot, Mr. Wile E. Young.
Good morrow, everyone. That's Hedonism Bot reference there. Hi, I'm Wile Young. I'm the co-writer of Perfectly Fine House with my inept disciple, Stephen Kozeniewski, who you all worship for some reason, and Causaholic that. Anyway, we had a lot of fun writing that, and we've had a lot of fun putting this together. It's been it's just been awesome coming back to this world that I never thought we'd actually ever come back to again.
Great. Okay, and looks like we've got some more viewers in. Courtney says, "Hey everyone." Hey Courtney. A good friend Sonia says, "Heart, heart, 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 heart." Jen Dobry Sonia, or whatever good evening is. I'm afraid my Polish is a little bit rusty. And Amy Lauer says, "Kayleigh Dobbs rules." That's a hard thing to hear from one's partner, but okay. Oh, and Mr. John Lynch, a fellow veteran, says, "Hey guys." I know John is much more than just a veteran, although maybe just a veteran, is not something that people should ever say. But I know he's very famous for his military horror and that sort of thing. Um, so welcome everybody in the stream and everybody live and everybody in the green room. Oh, and Christina Pfeiffer says, "Hi,
Woo!
friends." I believe one of the legendary Mothers of Mayhem, if I'm not mistaken. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that in the comments, Christina. Okay, so I know you're all here for the talk announcement, and we will get to that, but we're going to vamp for time for a little bit. No, not really. I just wanted to talk a little bit about how we got here. So I got an email today from Matt Wilderson, who just said hello earlier, about the upcoming Buzz Book Expo for 2023, which I hope you're all going to be going to. I know Kayleigh's got 17 appearances on there, something like that. So the reason why I bring that up is because we announced the Perfectly Fine Neighborhood at the Buzz Book Expo 2022. Now, we've actually been working on it for quite a bit longer than that, but we could not get it together. And I don't mean, although often Wile E and I cannot get our shit together, like our personal shit. What I mean by that is we could not get the funding together. So we decided we were going to do a Kickstarter. And at this point, Kayleigh was involved and said, the best thing to do, aside from Indiegogo, et cetera, is to do a Kickstarter. So we made the announcement in September of last year at BuzzBook. We started the Kickstarter, I think immediately thereafterwards, with an end date of Halloween. And I'm hoping that we have a lot of our Kickstarter backers watching. That's why we're doing this live cast, is as kind of a thank you and a greetings and a waypoint and everything to all of our Kickstarter backers. So I know some of you are watching right now, and we want to say thank you right off the bat. You're the reason this is happening. Everybody in the green room has you to thank. We funded about $2,100. And actually, Jay Wilburn, who I'm honoring with the t-shirt tonight, was one of our backers. I guess he's, missing but not forgotten. So anyway, there are also a lot of other backers who've been waiting for this for almost a year. So we did the Kickstarter, we got the funding, we got an idea of how many people we could get involved. Then in December, we put out the open call, and we kept it open for 6 months. And my reasoning behind that was, or our reasoning behind that was, this is not just another vampire call where you probably have something in your trunk that you can throw out there. We wanted to give people a little bit of time to put together this very unique world, to create something and put it into this very unique world. So we gave people about 6 months. We gave them until July 1st. And that is where, we've got some more comments. Summer Cannon, a legendary French press author, one of the top 2 French press authors, says, I'm really happy to see this come to fruition. Thank you, Summer. We're really glad to have you. And Matthew Wilderson says, hey there, Summer. Okay. Not really a comment for us, but you guys keep going. So July is where Kayleigh comes in as our acquisitions editor. So I'll let her talk about that piece a little bit.
Well, what a time I had. So I was reading the submissions as they were coming in, as and when I was checking the inbox every day. And we were having a fairly steady stream. We were having several a week. So that was fun reading for me for that time. And then I'd say about in the last 5 minutes of the submission window being open, all of a sudden, the influx. I went to bed one night, woke up the next day, opened the inbox, and just scrolled and scrolled and scrolled through the many submissions. And I have to say, it was like quite high quality all around. So the first wave of submissions, we decided to put things through to the second round. Firstly, if the story was written well, and but most importantly, if it fit the universe of the Perfectly Fine House. So we did have a few really good submissions, but they were absolutely nothing to do with the Perfectly Fine House whatsoever, and they broke a lot of the rules. And we all do that when we see submission calls, and maybe people had ghost stories and they thought, well, I'll try it. I'll just try and sneak it in there. But unfortunately, we did have to turn those down. I didn't actually know how many had gone through to the second round until we actually had to decide on the final lineup. So that was a fun time that we all had together. Hold on a second, I made a note somewhere of something I wanted to mention on this subject that I've lost. It's 3 o'clock in the morning here, so just forgive me if I seem a little bit erratic. So yeah, that was the first part of the process. Was I was trying to filter out things that just didn't fit the universe, basically. But it was quite hard. We had so many submissions that we just couldn't put all of them through to the second round. But it was very hard deciding. Everyone's such a good writer. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say on that part of the process.
Okay.
Damn
Awesome.
you all and your million good stories.
Yeah. Let us know if you find that note. And John says, Summer Cannon, hi, Summer, congrats on the Imagine Award. Yes, that is right. Summer brought it home for Your Mine, a French press publication. And our good friend Bill Fisher is here. Bill says, oh, hey, hi, hello. Super pumped for this book and the expansion of this workload. Guessing he meant world. Okay. So after Kayleigh went through and did the acquisitions part, I got all the stories back that we pushed into the second round. And now that's something we weren't planning to do. We were never planning to have rounds or anything like that. But we got dozens of stories, maybe hundreds of stories. I'm not 100% sure. Bill says,
They were a lot.
I'm working. Sorry for the rush typing, lol. No worries, Bill.
No excuses, Bill.
Yeah, seriously, Bill. So we had lots and lots of stories, and we decided to do a second round. And what I did was I stripped all of the information, all of the identifying information out, so we could actually have a blind round. And then I handed all of those over to Wile E, and he's going to talk about that for a minute.
Yep. So I got both the easiest and the hardest job, which was reading the top stories that made both Kayleigh and Koz's lists. And like Koz says, he stripped away any identifying information from them, so I had to read through them blind without any indication of who was who, what was what, if this story was even supposed to be in this anthology call. I'm just kidding. They were all very, very good. And it was surprisingly hard to pick the ones that we ended up doing from those top stories. A lot of it came down to literally we had some very similar entries between, and sometimes we had to what is the best one of these serial killer stories, which is the best one of these ghost detective stories, and they were all good. And we three had some pretty had a pretty intense discussion of which ones to take eventually, and it was like, I really want this one, but this one works. It was tough, but we got through it, and I'm proud of the ones that we did end up with.
Yeah, that was hard.
Yeah,
and I just wanted to ask Wile E, is your wife mad at you? Did she lock you in a closet, or bury you in a coffin or something where there's no light?
Listen, so my office is under renovation right now, so I'm in the backup office, which has one light in that direction.
I see.
I'm out here with my crypt keeper lamp.
Very nice. That's very appropriate for the perfectly fine neighborhood. So yeah, I want to kind of clarify. I was trying to I guess I didn't say this part. I was trying to concentrate on doing the line editing and the content edits, so I didn't really want to get too involved in the acquisitions. So basically, I let Kayleigh take care of that part. Oh, very nice. Emily says, and I'm guessing this is your wife, says he's allowed light on the weekends. So we'll have to schedule this next one for a Saturday. And Bill Fisher says, we totally believe you. Blink if you need help. Okay, so I basically just looked at Kayleigh's picks and rejections and kind of did a stink test and read maybe a few paragraphs at the beginning, a few paragraphs at the end to make sure they were, like she was not crazy, and she was never crazy.
That's a
But there,
separate issue.
well, sure. And I know at least one of our contributors is a therapist, so we probably shouldn't say crazy. We should say mentally disturbed. So I basically didn't get involved until we were down to the actual stories that we had picked. But even so, regarding the difficulty of picking an actual table of contents for this, which I do want to kind of talk about kind of a round robin for a minute here, there were stories that I started reading just to do the sanity check, and they were such genius stories that I read the whole thing, and I was like, this is genius, but also it has nothing to do with our submission call. We need to reject it. So to the people that were rejected, please don't take it as a reflection on you or your work or anything like that. There were so many different things that we were trying to keep in mind as we were making these decisions. So let's talk a little bit about that. Like, what was on your guys' mind when we made the final decisions?
I found it really hard when, like Wiley said, we had several, like we had some similar categories where we had like 6 serial killer stories and 10 ghost detective stories. And what I found really hard about that is that, like Wiley said, they were all really good, and all 3 of us had different favorites in those categories. So trying to come together to choose which, because we just didn't want to have an anthology that was full of the same theme every time. But we didn't have like a general consensus most times about which one was the best in the category. So that I found that really, really hard, because we were all forced to agree to reject stories that we really, really wanted in the anthology, but we just couldn't stretch the spaces anymore. So yeah, I found that really difficult.
Yeah.
It's one thing having to reject stories that don't fit the world, even though you liked them, but in your head you can go, oh, well, to be fair, it doesn't fit the world. But when it's a story that absolutely fits the world, and the person who submitted it clearly read the book and they worked really hard to keep it in line with, and it was really good, and we just can't have it in there. I found that really, really difficult.
I especially appreciate the part where Kaz and I were arguing about how it's like, no, absolutely not. And Kaz would be like, yes, I really want this one. I'm like, well, I really want this one. And Kayleigh was like, I support both of you.
Well, I did.
It's good to have different personalities involved. Sonia says, I'm so here for the ghost detective stories. So don't worry, Sonia. That was one of our well-represented categories. And I did want to speak about nepotism real quick. So you are going to find that some of our close personal friends, for instance, Candace Nola, she's one of the announced authors that's going to be involved. And I think it's fair to say, she's close personal friends with Wile E and I. Yes, we did accept some close personal friends. That is going to happen when you have a submission call like this, because some of your friends are going to submit. The horror community is very small. But I wanted to let you all know we also made the heartbreaking choice to reject some close personal friends. And that's just as difficult.
If anything, I wanted to reject even more personal friends.
Steven just said that and then ducked out real fast.
Right. Don't know what happened there. So we got to fill this time, Kayleigh. So
let's tell everyone who he personally rejected.
Yeah,
oh, wait,
okay.
no, he's back.
So the first person Kaz rejected.
Oh, my God.
No,
you knew it was going to happen. So, my nerves are freaking all over the place. I was like, oh, good. Like 50 people are relying on me. I'm sure something's going to go wrong. I have no idea what I clicked. Are we broadcasting? All right, it does.
Yeah, I think we're still here.
Oh my god. Okay. Anyway, right in the middle of that really difficult thing to go over. Anyway,
I thought you were running away and leaving me to take the blame.
yes, I'm sorry. Okay, Matt Wilderson says you're still on. Okay, great. Anyway, point being, this is a business of professionals, and anytime that you were emailing us with a story, and this was also difficult with having Kickstarter backers involved too. Yeah, we have to reject some Kickstarter backers if the story's not there. Point being, when you're sending a story to us, you're sending it to the editors of French Press, not to my close personal friend Steve or what have you. But on the plus side, I got a very exciting tweet or DM from Jake McCormack, who was one of the authors that we rejected. I think he's been public about. Well, I think he's certainly been public about it at this point. So he published a story called "The Inevitable" under D&T, and that's now available on Godless. And I'll even put the link in the chat. I'll see if I can figure out technology. Yay! But yeah, this was a rejection from the Perfectly Fine Neighborhood. And he went on and took it and had it published elsewhere. So for any of you that were asking us or were wondering, is there anything proprietary in this world? Can I use these stories and go on and do great things? Yes, of course. Please go on and do great things. We're very happy for Jake. We're very excited to see what happens to your Perfectly Fine stories and that kind of thing. So the last thing before we start bringing in our special guests, and I will make Wile E talk about this a little bit because this is where he gets to be the hero a little bit. So we did not fully back the Kickstarter. We got all of the tiers except for the tier where we added additional slots. And then Wile E came to me, and do you want to talk about that, Wile E?
And just wanted additional slots for the book.
Yeah.
Our original slots were what, 13?
It was originally 10.
10. But we made enough on our Kickstarter to go up to 15, I believe.
Well, we did and we didn't. I guess he's either being humble or he doesn't know what I'm talking about. But
we're gonna go with the first one.
Yeah, we ended up. Wile E and I both agreed to forego our fees for this book in order to open up a few more slots. So, and I bring that up, and we're going to bring that up again with one of our guests. But we felt so strongly about some of these stories that we had to move some money around to get a couple more people in. So I get it. Hopefully, I know, again, like I said, everybody's a professional in this business. Hopefully nobody's stewing or steaming over being rejected. But like I said, don't take it personally. But bear in mind that we had such difficulty with making these selections that we had to go ahead and select a few more. So with that being said, let's go ahead and introduce our first entry on the table of contents. Hope everybody get excited. The first entry, that was my little drum roll. I don't know if you even have. First entry is The First Ghost by Stephen Kozeniewski. Yes, that's right. This guy somehow made it in. I know, that's not what you all wanted. So this was my story. And like I mentioned earlier, we've been working on this for at least 3 or 4 years. And I started writing this story in a cabin in 2020. And it is a story about 2 people in a cabin, 2 lovers in a cabin, who they have a little more money than sense. And like rich people tend to do, they want to escape from the world as it is and, go to a world of fantasy. So a lot of people in the Perfectly Fine world, and we found that this came up in a couple more of the submissions, they want to get away from the ghosts and they want to find ways to escape. So I had my characters go to Greenland, which I did. And when I say research, I mean I Wikipedia'd it. And Greenland is the least densely populated place on Earth. So I thought to myself, oh, okay, maybe there's a whole thing in Greenland where they welcome people and they say you can have a ghost-free vacation here. So the first part's kind of fun and sexy and silly, and we're introducing these characters and they're having a fun time at a cabin. But then they notice that one of their ghost away lights never turns off. So there's something very strange going on at this cabin in the woods. And I have to say, I don't think anyone has ever set a horror story in a cabin in the woods before. So this is going to be like new ground for everybody. I know you're all really excited to meet the actual guests that are not me. I was going to actually put Kayleigh's story first. I thought that was a good starter. But when I saw what hers was called and mine was called The First Ghost, I said, and we discussed, well, mine, and again, mine's a big boy because I started writing this before we kind of set the cap at 6,000 words. So mine's kind of a big boy. And we decided let's front load the fattest one, and it's called The First Ghost. So first story, yay. And now for the second story, let's hand it over to the goat leader.
So the next one in the lineup is called Jurisdiction, and it's by Bev Vincent. Very, very excited about that. If you haven't heard of Bev Vincent, he is the writer of numerous horror fiction and non-fiction works, has won multiple awards, and I think his notable non-fiction stuff has been about the works of Stephen King. There's a whole slew. If you Google, the list will just go on forever, the bibliography. And he's also edited a whole load of anthologies and things as well. So his story is... I found it kind of funny, but I don't think that was the tone. But I think it was the manner that it was written in. But if we have a ghost detective story, but about a guy, I won't give any spoilers, but this is like right at the beginning. It's about a detective trying to solve the murder of a John Doe. It's a really mysterious murder, and then it turns out that there might be a lot more to worry about than just the living being murdered, and hijinks ensue. So, yeah.
It is. There's your first ghost detective story, Sonia, and everybody. Okay, so Matt Wilderson says, congrats, Stephen. Yeah, I know. I have an in with the editors. And I think regarding Bev's story, Matt says, awesome. Okay, now for the no longer fucking around. Okay, we're going to bring in our first special guest. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, special guest. I believe she is a debut author. And so you heard we have Bev Vincent, old guard, lots of stuff under his belt, huge bibliography. So we're really running the gamut here. And watch, she's going to say, no, I'm not a debut author. But the third story in the Perfectly Fine Neighborhood is The Blue Mausoleum by J.C. Smith.
Hello. How is everyone?
Good. How are you doing?
2 thumbs up.
I am absolutely shaking, but we're here. It's actually really exciting. I love listening to all the background and all the stories, and we've all been chatting in the background too. So this is actually super fun.
Great. So if you guys have any questions for JC, put it in now. We can probably bring people back if there's great demand, but we don't want to put too much demand on the time of our guests. So if you have questions or comments for the people, throw them in as they pop up. For instance, Bill Fisher says, I refuse to accept the fucking round has come to an end. You're probably right, Bill. Matt says, congrats, JC.
Thank you.
Eric says, congrats, JC.
Stop.
Sean says, congrats. Oh, they're going to keep coming.
Oh,
So,
I'm
JC,
blushing.
spoiler free, why don't you tell us a
Okay.
little bit about this story and any background on it? Or actually, why don't you introduce yourself and then tell us about the story?
Oh, okay. First things first. Hi, yes, I'm JC. I go by Jess, so whatever is most convenient. This is actually my first horror short story.
Yay!
Yeah, so wild ride. And I've been writing for a while, but this one was the first one that I was like, let's try out some horror. I just watched The Descent, so I was like, you know what? I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the gut-wrenching horror. Let's jump into it. But actually, what kind of got me started was this short story. I cannot remember. All I remember is there was a tower mentioned, and it was in France, where like this woman was like kept coming back to this tower and was very intrigued. And I was like, I like the kind of mystical pull that this tower has on this woman. And then, of course, Perfectly Fine House, Perfectly Fine Neighborhood is very ghost oriented. A lot of sixth sense. No, it's not going to happen, but you understand what I mean. Ghosts are around, ghosts are real, and everyone can see them. So I was like, me being a controversial in nature, I was like, what if this character can't see them? So the Blue Mausoleum kind of married the two ideas of like this guy called Dallin. One of his friends, I feel like I can say it. It's not necessarily spoiled. It happened in the first 2 pages. His friend dies, and at the same time, a Blue Mausoleum pops up that Dallin keeps finding himself, like, I think I used the line like a fish on a hook. Like it keeps pulling him, keeps kind of speaking to him, causing a reaction. And so he believes it's tied to his friend's death. And since he can't see his friend, he's like, well, WTF, what's going on here? And even though his sister can see ghosts, he has a twin. His twin can see ghosts, but she can't see the mausoleum. So it's kind of like, who can see what? A little bit of a mystery, a lot of bit of gore, because things happen very, very quickly. This mausoleum kind of has a bit of a personality to it, very mischievous, and very alluring. So it was really fun to kind of play around with all these different themes. And there's another theme, but I don't know if you want me to talk about it, because it's kind of where the horror comes in, and I'm like, I don't know.
No, I
Let
think
them read it.
Spoilery.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll leave the big theme a mystery.
For everybody in the comments, when Kaz and I were talking about her story, we're like, this has a very Full Brutal meets Hellraiser vibe.
Yep.
I'll admit,
Yeah.
when I started writing the descriptions, I was like, this is my crap. Like, this is so much fun to just write gore.
And how did your husband enjoy listening to you read that voice?
So he was cooking, which in retrospect was not the best time to read a gore sequence. I think it was a dream sequence where I read it to him, and it was very messy. And he was I couldn't actually see his face. I read it from a different room, and all I could hear was gross. Yeah, there he is. He did not like at all.
Oh, that's
He did
your
not
husband.
recommend. Yeah, that's him.
That's not just somebody cutting wise. Okay. All right.
No, that's him. So yeah, he did not like it.
For the audio listeners, apparently JC's husband said he did not enjoy.
It's too gross for him.
We've had a lot of great comments. Matt said, can't wait to read it.
Mm-hmm.
Sean says, you had me at Full Brutal meets Hellraiser. Sonia says, so good. Christina says, amazing. Lots of great stuff from the comments here. So, let's keep this train rolling. If you guys have any questions for JC, like I said, throw them in the comments section. But we're going to pop you back out, JC, and move on to our next special guest. Oh, I don't want to ban you. How do I just get you out of this?
Oh, please don't.
All right.
You're on a
Okay,
tablet.
remove from stream. That's how you do it. Okay. The next story, drum roll please, is called Auld Lang Syne by Wile E. Young.
Thank you.
Now, I hardly remember this story at all, Wile E. You're going to have to tell us all about it.
Yep, definitely going to tell you all about it. All about the super great story that is totally super written right now. Anyway, it will not be done in the next 3 days. So, so this story actually originates several years ago. When I actually pulled it out from my files, the date on it, I was like, oh wow, this is like 4 houses ago. This is from a very early time in my career. So basically, it takes place in this skyscraper during the events of Perfectly Fine House, and main characters are these 6 ghosts who on Y2K were murdered at their New Year's Eve party by this coworker who hated them. And for the next 20 years, they all just made fun of him because they're all ghosts now. And they're like, you still couldn't do anything. You're still stuck with us, you loser. And so when the events of Perfectly Fine House begin to happen, what ends up happening in the book ends up happening there in the skyscraper too. And now the guy who killed them, this spree killer, he's like, oh, I can actually really kill you now. And so the whole thing kind of plays out almost like, sort of like Die Hard, but, they're in the skyscraper. The effect is happening all over the place, and they're being picked off one by one. And how are people going to survive? And do they defeat their coworker who hates them?
And you didn't call it the Perfectly Fine Nakatomi Plaza, huh?
I tried, but there was some whole things about legality.
Warner Brothers sued you, yeah. Okay, well, yeah, I'm sure it's going to be great. And sorry to any of our Kickstarter backers, if you don't get the story if you don't get the anthology as promised, now you know who to blame. Okay, our next special guest is horror royalty, the crown prince of what is it? No, the clown prince of horror. I was trying to think of what it was. I don't know what he is. Anyway, our next story is called A Most Unpleasant Task, but it was not an unpleasant task to read it, by Mr. Jeff Strand. Welcome, Jeff.
Hello. How's it going?
It's going great. So I think, maybe everybody knows you, but if not, do you want to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about this story?
I am Jeff Strand. I have lost the Gross Out contest many times to Stephen Kozeniewski, but I did win at KillerCon this year. So I have finally, after 25 years, I was the #1 entry. So all it took was a song.
In my absence, I take it.
In my absence as well.
Yeah.
That's right. Without the competition, I did amazingly well.
Oh, we have a question. Is Jeff also a debut author from Eric Smith?
No, I am the old guard now. I used to be the promising newcomer, but those days are long, long gone.
Now, according to the Gross Out contest logic, you are a promising newcomer.
That's right.
So I really enjoyed this story, Jeff, and you definitely brought some of the humor in. We talked a little bit about, the splatter. We had the splatterpunk with J.C. Smith. We had some more straight horror with some of the stuff that Wile E and I were talking about. So was this just a paycheck for you and you threw it together, or was there some kind of inspiration behind this story?
No, I brought my A game. I read the book carefully, tried to figure out what I could do that other people wouldn't do. And so basically the story is about a woman who's dead. Her husband is still alive. And her problem is that he had told her, I can't live without you. But 3 years later, he's proven that to have just been kind of a lie. And she hasn't been laid as a ghost. And, as the book establishes, you can have, proxies sort of, but she's not into that. They're not, she's like, no, it's got to be the real thing. And he doesn't get to do someone who is my mind in their body. So she secretly hires an assassin to kill him so that she will have her ghost husband back, and then she can finally get laid. And then everything goes perfectly well. There's no conflict at all. It just proceeds in a completely straightforward fashion, and everyone's happy.
That does sound like a Jeff Strand story. Deathless Part 2.
That's just I thought, why make things hard on these people? Let's just have everything go smoothly.
Awesome. So, one other question for you, Jeff. Do you think yours will be better than Brian Keene's?
I think mine will be wackier than Brian Keene's.
So you're not taking a stand
Evasion.
one way or the other.
Mine is going to kick his ass. He's going to read it, throw it against the wall, say, I quit. I quit, Mary. Mary, I'm done. And then he's going to just destroy his office, and Mary's going to say, no, Brian, you have talent. You do. You
For
do.
all our
I like the whole tableau there.
Yeah.
For all our viewers, this is actually going to be the subject of Brian's next daily walk video. Strand.
I thought it would be End of the Road 2, End of the Roadier.
I'm sure he delivered a perfectly good story. I don't know that it compares.
That's fair enough. Eric Smith says nothing ever goes wrong in a Jeff Strand story. And Sean Stanford agrees, I love when there's no conflict.
Yeah.
As I think about it, Jeff, that's kind of what you do, isn't it? When Bring Her Back and Deathless and all this kind of, you start out where everything's hunky-dory and then things really take a left turn. Is that one of, do you do that deliberately, or am I just now pointing that out to you?
No, I do that deliberately. I try to, I like to write books where just everything that can go wrong does go wrong, and just a chain of events that just is disastrous.
Outstanding. And Sean Isget's got a better. The next one should be called End of the Road 2, Strand Strikes Back. Okay.
I
agree. Well, Jeff, I think I've expressed this to you before. I'll express it in public. Thank you so much for being involved. Thank you for taking the time. We really appreciate it. Your name's going to go under the cover. It's just going to say "and others," but you're one of the others. So
I'll take it.
Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely.
Jeff, unlike him, seriously, thank you. We're really glad to have you.
Sure. I'm glad to be in it.
Okay. And from one horror royalty to another, I know, and we even stacked the deck a little bit, so you have to get to this point in the book to get that 1-2 punch here. Our next contributor with a story called Click, an absolutely heart-wrenching, just tour de force, multiple Splatterpunk Award winner, horror royalty, Miss Candace Nola.
Woo, Candace!
Hello, folks.
Hey, Candace. Thanks for being with us tonight.
You're welcome.
So, do you want to tell folks, I'm sure people know who you are, but do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and the background for this story and what it's about?
A little bit about me. I'm one of your special friends, family with you and Wile E, so that's why I'm in here, no other reason. Let me see. Creator of Uncomfortably Dark. Why did I name it that? Because I'm uncomfortable, like right now, and I like dark stuff. So there you go. Multiple award winning as of a couple weeks ago. And on to the story. Yeah, I went all in with this. It's actually a really personal story. And while it is a fictional story, it's very heavily based on the when somebody close to me died about 24 years ago. My older brother died, and the story is actually what I went through when that day, like the moment he died, and then a lot of what occurred after. And I took all of that and I put it into your world and tried to make it all line up to where it would make sense for the world, but also add in a lot of like heart in what somebody in that situation might go through if they were in your world. Their person died but didn't come back as they were expected and whatnot. So it was a lot of like her reaction to what went on and where is he and is he coming? Is he not coming? Like what happened to this? And everyone else can see all their loved ones, but hers is not there. And it was just not going to give away anything else in there, but I wanted to just put a lot more like heart into this one, and in that type of a world, like what would you feel if you expected, okay, well, they passed away, but they'll be back, right?
I felt sad is what I felt.
You know, so what, Wiley?
I said, I felt sad is what I felt.
Well, yeah, that was the expectation because everyone else in her world has their loved ones like come back at some point and they can still interact with them. But there's something that she has to get through in this before we get to the ending. So.
Oh, and Christina says it's a hauntingly beautiful, sad story by Stocking Kleenex. Was she one of your pre-readers?
Yeah. I made her cry.
No, I really thought so too. And one of the things that I noted, obviously famous for the splatter, and there was splatter in there, definitely. You know, there's definitely some gore in there, but also that you really took it to the heartfelt, almost quiet horror side with a lot of what was going on there. Were you trying to stretch your muscles with this one?
No.
Oh, this is just a regular day for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
This one actually, so the original story, this was not my original story, which is why it was a little bit late, because the original story I had in mind, it just didn't work. And the flow was just not right at all. And it just did not feel like this was not the story I wanted to write for this anthem. And I had the idea of what if I took this event and maybe aligned it with this world. And when I first started to write it, the flow just hit and everything just came out. And I actually wrote this one in about 4.5 days. It was just there. And so that's how I knew, like, this is the time for me to tell this story, and this is when. So I just wrote it, and it fit. So there you go.
Awesome. So Ashante says she's an amazing writer. This is a friend of yours? Okay.
That's my daughter.
Oh, this is your daughter. Okay. Good. Christina Pfeiffer says, I don't have feelings. Well, it seems like
you do now.
The Grinch's heart grew 3 sizes after reading The Perfectly Fine Neighborhood. And Sonia implores you, please break me, Candace. That could be taken any number of ways.
We'll do that in a group chat there, Sonia.
I agree with Ashante. Candace is the height.
Yeah. I just finished Bishop. It's amazing what Candace can do. So we are really happy to have you here, Candace. Thanks so much. And we're going to keep going. But like I said, if you guys have any questions or anything, for Candace or any of the other folks that you've seen, you can still feel free to drop them, and we may throw some more people back on there. So thank you, Candace, for being part of this. You're really one of the tent poles. I don't know if I told you this, but you were one of the tent poles we had to have Candace. I'm not just saying that. I think I've told these two that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was done. So I still feel like a rookie. So.
No, you've had your first invitation, right?
Yeah.
I'll bet you've had a bunch more since then, huh?
You weren't my first, but you were my first prorate, I think.
That's it.
I've had 22
I'll take it.
in the past 14 months.
There you go. Okay, thanks so much, Candace.
You're welcome.
See you, Candace.
See ya.
Okay. All right, and let's hand it over to Kayleigh for our next entry.
Oh, right, yeah. Sorry, I'm not looking at notes. The next one in the lineup is called The Perfectly Fine Family by Ryan Breadinc. Is that how you say the surname?
I think it's a made-up surname, so...
Yeah, let's go with that. So that was one of my personal favorite submissions as soon as it came in because of the tone it was written in, and I'm a big fan of stories that are horrifying but also a bit funny. And it's about a married couple. They've been together a really long time, decades, and trying to remember their names. Yes. Carl and Marie, and Carl is a ghost and has been for quite some time, and Marie is still amongst the living, and Carl decides that this is actually a very inconvenient dynamic for him, and decides to try to off her so that they're both ghosts. And I will neither confirm or deny if he succeeds in this at all, but his attempts are very funny. Sorry. Yeah, really, really made me laugh. That was like I think that was in my top 5 of all of the submissions that came in. I really, really enjoyed it. Ryan is I'm sorry, I have to look at my notes because I get nervous when we're live, so I forget everything otherwise. He's a writer from Australia, and he has a website that I checked out a little while back, and he's a writer of multiple works of short fiction. I think he's done some graphic novel work as well, if I'm remembering that correctly from his website. So, eclectic writer. So I'm really excited. Really excited to see everything we'll put together when we got all the stories together in the book.
Yeah, and Kayleigh mentioned it. We have stories from 3 continents. So we had stories from the US, the UK, I don't think Canada, but US, UK, and Australia. So that's very exciting. We were going for some diversity of talent in here. Okay, Christina asks, what was his last name again? It's Breadinc, like bread, like bread, INC. I'll put it in the chat. And yeah, we're really excited to be hosting him. It is a really funny story. I think it was one of the few that got through the blind submissions with Wile E as well.
Mm-hmm.
So for our next story,
speaking of another one that got through the blind submission.
Yeah.
This next one.
Okay. So this next one is very exciting. It is called Fiduciary Duty by Zachary Rosenberg, who we happen to have with us here today. Hey, Zachary, how are you doing?
It's great to see everyone. Stephen, Wile E, and Kayleigh, so nice to meet you.
Hello.
We were just meeting for the first time ever.
Yeah, totally. Complete strangers.
So, Zachary, do you want to tell the folks that might not know, although you've been blowing it up, and Matt Wilderson says, hey, Zach.
Hey, Matt.
We might have met 1 or 2 years ago, and since then I've seen you blowing it up.
Thank you, man.
What was it? Not the goodbye, the long shalom.
Long shalom. My
He wrote a perfectly adequate Western.
And a perfectly adequate Western. I heard about that as well. So for the folks that might not know you, do you want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself and a little bit about this story?
Absolutely. My name is Zachary Rosenberg. I'm kind of one of the new kids on the scene right now. Hey, Eric. I first met Stephen and Wile E at AuthorCon, I think like a couple of years ago now. So I was just kind of like, the new starry-eyed guy there, just starting writing, and it's been going pretty well, I think. And Wile E was kind enough to blurb my first novella, which is a Jewish horror western called "The Hunger is as Old as This Land," and my second one is a pulp cosmic horror detective novel called "The Long Shalom." And as you can probably guess, I'm Jewish. I like writing horror from a Jewish perspective. I kind of figure, be the change you want to see. I'm living in Florida right now, and I'm also an attorney, which kind of helped inspire this story. Please don't hold either against me. So the way I would describe this story, it's called Fiduciary Duty, and it is set kind of the idea I had is what happens when, if we accept the reality of ghosts, what happens when those ghosts are not stable? What happens to people who die violently, and what do you do with them, because they're ghosts, they're eternal? And the idea kind of came to me is you kind of have to shut them away somewhere. It's like a mental institution or an asylum for ghosts. And kind of the premise is the hero is an attorney who is trying to prove his client is not guilty of murder, and he's doing that by going to interview the ghosts of murder victims who may or may not be stable enough to give those answers, but are definitely dangerous enough to be a threat if he makes the mistake. And he's also kind of working with his partner, who is his wife, who's a ghost. So they end up trapped in the house, and it's all about how essentially trying to find their way out and uncover this mystery of what actually happened. And it was just a lot of fun to write. I kind of like writing the I wouldn't call it like the detective one. It was kind of like the idea of like, oh, hey, lawyers do investigations. Why not write from the perspective of an attorney who is trying to fulfill that zealous representation duty to his client?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. One of the things that I liked about this one so much is that with the whole Perfectly Fine house, we were trying to get away from the jump scares and the broke neck lady from the Haunting of Hill House and that kind of thing. We were trying to get away from that deliberately. And then when you came up with the ghost asylum idea and you brought all of that back in such a just visceral way, where I was like, oh shit, I would not like to go into that asylum.
Yeah. I mean, it was a lot of fun writing the ghosts. There were some twists along the way. There's kind of I was very cognizant of how I was writing that, but like the idea of like this is a place where you like if you are a living human being, you do not want to set foot through those doors because they are eternal, they are traumatized, they are angry, and you don't know like what you're getting into just by trying to even just talk to them.
When I read it on the blind submission, my initial thought when that opening scene, I was like, man, bunch of insane ghosts, they still can't help getting sued.
What we do.
Yeah, can I say, it's funny that you mentioned Hill House, Stephen, because I don't know if this is what you were intending at all, but I pictured like the dark Hill House thing as I was reading it, and it was scary.
Oh, thank you. You know what? In all honesty, I actually wasn't thinking of Hill House at all when I was writing this.
It's just where my brain went, I guess.
No, it's honored to be compared.
13 Ghosts, would that be a better
touchstone? Okay. I have a complete love for that movie that like goes well beyond
the remake, right? The remake.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. Look, I could tell you like all 13 Ghosts like names and backstories. I'm just like, please just give us a TV show about them.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I did have one. Oh, so Christina Pfeiffer, and you'll have to clarify for us, Christina. She said such a great book. Was that the Shalom or the Western? Just let us know in the comments. But getting praise from the watchers. But I did have one question for you, Zach. Brett Smith says nobody is above the law, not even the. Oh, nice. That should be the yeah.
Tagline.
That should be the tagline for the story. Christina says the Western was.
Thank you so much, Christina. By the way, I'm just like, a year ago, it would have been inconceivable for me to have even someone tell me this is a great book and have someone ask which one.
Right, right. But I did want to ask a question that I think is probably burning on everybody's mind.
Please.
Was it just like really hard to make a lawyer into a hero? Was it just like how do you even do that? Like, I know this whole world is like counter reality, but you really brought a real counter reality in there.
Well, I work in public service. I worked in the public defender's office for a brief period of time. I do like social work. Obviously there's a lot of people who, unfortunately fit some of the stereotypes, but a lot of the stuff I've been exposed to is really people working within a system to do the best for, sometimes the most vulnerable people. And that is something I carry with me, a lot when I'm writing attorneys. Obviously everyone knows the the evil lawyer jokes. But no, it wasn't really hard. It was just like, obviously you take a client, you take someone that truly believes their client is innocent. So yeah, to get that confession, he will brave the dark, ghost asylum and risk having, coming out without his skin. I honestly, I think what I was struggling with at first was kind of how I was going to make this so I could keep tension and also portray the character. And that's kind of where I came up with the idea of his wife.
Oh, I thought, and in a way, I think the wife was the real hero.
Oh, she was. Mona was great to read. I really enjoyed writing those two.
But yeah, I'm just joshing you, of course. Amy Lauer asks, "What kind of law do you practice, Zach?"
I do child welfare law, so that is not the easiest thing in the world.
Yeah, actually, when I worked in, I was just a clerk, but when I worked in a social work office, that was always the stereotype was, oh, you guys are taking kids away from their parents, It was such a difficult,
Yeah. It is.
Bill's cutting wise, but we'll leave that alone. Eric says, Zachary's image is occasionally flickering. Is he a ghost? Okay.
Possibly.
Okay. Well, thanks so much, Zach. This was a great story. We're really happy to, get to include you.
Thank you guys so
thanks.
much.
It was great, Zach.
All right. Okay. Next one. Okay, back to me. Oh, this was an exciting piece. So the next story on the table of contents was called Addict to Slaughter by Shane Burnham. And I can put that in the notes for Christina, anybody else who is taking notes. And the reason why I'm going to go ahead and put that right in there is because I know Shane is a debut author. Very young man. This is his first piece that is being featured anywhere. So we were excited to get to feature it. Like I said, running the gamut from people like Burnham all the way up to Bev Vincent, and elders like Jeff Strand. I think he's in his 60s or so. Bill Fisher says, now that is a title. That is a title. Addict to Slaughter.
It is.
Sean Stanford says, I'm not a nerd, so I'm taking notes. Oh, I think that's in response to Christina at some point said, I am taking notes like a nerd. So, yeah. We're all note takers here, so you watch yourself, Sean. So Addict to Slaughter, we talked about how we had a lot of detective stories. We also had a number of serial killer stories to run through and serial killer adjacent. Sonia says, the Xanax is hitting. Good night, all. Good job. I'm so excited for this. Thanks, Sonia. Thanks for stopping in. So this is one of the serial killer stories that we accepted. And it is about a serial killer who takes all of his victims back to his house and kills them in one spot. which, as you know, in the universe of the Perfectly Fine House, which we should probably come up with a term for, the house verse or something.
I'll play test it. Get back to you.
Okay, yeah. Also playtest Cosaholics. I want to see how that's. Are you doing like surveys?
Focus groups mostly.
Focus
Cosaholics
groups.
isn't doing very well.
Oh, all right, all right. Okay, so poor Shane. Yeah, so this young man's story is about a serial killer who kills all of his victims in the same location and then is, of course, haunted by them. So it is somewhat, while he cannot control his own lashing out, it is coming back to him almost immediately, almost karmically. So we were very excited about this story. And our next story, we'll kick it back over to Kayleigh for Incorporeal Tax by Annie Knox.
Yeah. So this had possibly my favorite ending, which obviously I will not even allude to what the ending is whatsoever, but oh my gosh, it's so chilling. It's about a couple called Jamie and Steve. Steve is a ghost, and Jamie kind of wants out of this relationship, but how can he possibly get out of it when his partner's a ghost that can follow him everywhere? And it was kind of like a hard read because I don't know what happened to my voice then. It's a hard read because it was the relationship, apart from the ghost element, was quite like realistically depicted for people who've been with people who aren't very nice. So it's like quite manipulative and stuff. So I was reading it like, oh, this guy, what's he gonna do? And yeah, he possibly comes across a solution, and that's all I'll say. But it
was the first one I read in one go. It was very good.
Yeah, and I've been thinking about it ever since because of the way it ended. So, and Annie Knox did a little bit of research because Annie Knox is unfamiliar to me, but she's everywhere apparently. She's an actor, a scriptwriter, a fiction writer. She's an award-winning scriptwriter. So yeah, I found her I googled her and found her on IMDb first, so I was quite interested. Then I got nosy and started, looking at her whole life like an internet stalker. But I was really intrigued by the scriptwriting stuff. So, yeah.
We, the editors of the Perfectly Fine Neighborhood, do not condone Kayleigh's internet stalking.
Did I say stalking? I meant taking an interest in the people in the anthology. That's what I meant.
Well, I just learned this, I think. I probably learned it when we first met, but I relearned it this week because of my memory. But your degree is in script writing, right?
My degree is I did theatre and media, and then I did an MA in script writing, which I haven't been able to use for anything professionally, but it's nice to have.
Well, you used it for reviewing Annie's story.
Yes, yeah.
So I will tell this story. I said we weren't going to tell any funny stories about the submission process, but since this one made it through, Annie actually submitted her story as a PDF. And that's like bad juju, everybody. Don't do that. So, but we gave it a fair shake. We all read it anyway and made it through. So, I guess I think we've all learned, and I don't mean to take a detour like this, but I think the three of us, I certainly have learned so much about the submissions process from going through with this. And that's one of those things where agents and editors will tell you, like, if you don't get everything perfect, we're not even going to consider your thing. So we weren't that strict. Like, we were doing things like taking PDFs and that kind of thing and still considering them. But I also understand why they want it that way, because you just need things to be easy. But yeah, we're really excited to have Annie. Okay, and the next one, this is one of our other big tent poles. I'm going to kick it over to Wile E if he's comfortable.
Yep.
Is called Where the Heart Is by Mr. Brian Keene.
Woo! Is it? I guess he didn't actually show up for this. I thought his face was about to pop up. Anyway, no, this was another one of our tentpole stories that we received. I think some of the funding was literally, I think he was actually a Kickstarter tier. If you donate this much, you will get a story written directly from the Grandmaster of Horror himself. And we made it. It was a good story. I was glad that he did it. I'm super excited to have it in the anthology because I think it will contrast pretty well with what Candace and Jeff also submitted. That's all there is to it.
Okay. Yeah, this one was short. This was a vignette. It was a little different from what he usually writes, so I think you're all going to really be excited. Eric Smith says Mr. Young's fans are called Group E's.
Dang right they are.
Is that actually what you call them?
Now it is.
Oh, all right. But I can't have Cosaholics. I can't have nice things.
No.
But you get Group E's.
Listen, look at you in your fancy office, and I'm out here with my Crypt Keeper lamp. So
that's true.
Listen,
That's
at least you guys have fans. So, you know.
You have fans. I have heard Mary San Giovanni gushing over you and all kinds of stuff. You have plenty of fans, yeah.
You should never have told me that. Smug mode.
Smug mode activated.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
And even Candace Nola says, I'm your fan. Although maybe that was not for public consumption because that was in the private chat. So we are unsure publicly what Candace Nola's feelings about you are. All right. So let's move on to, I believe, our final guest of the evening. But don't go anywhere because there's more announcements to come. But the next story in our table of comments, well, it is called Lay, Lie, Lie by Gavin Dillinger. And before I bring Gavin on, who I see is already vamping for the camera, but that's fine. We'll keep him vamping. I mentioned earlier that Wile E and I forewent our fees in order to let more people in. So I found out after the fact that apparently Kayleigh and Gavin got up to some chicanery to ensure that he was getting paid less than he was worth. And he also said, yeah, thanks for that. We'll be discussing that at your next quarterly evaluation. So, Gavin, you should also all thank. Now, we didn't specify, and we couldn't possibly, it doesn't work that way, but we didn't specify which books were, funded by this or that. It's all kind of part and parcel. So my recommendation to all of you folks that came in over the transom, just next time that you see Gavin at a convention or something, you just all buy him drinks. Just all 8 of you buy him drinks. I guess in Shane Burnham's case, it'll have to be a root beer or something. But so thank you for that, Gavin. And let's go ahead and add him to the stream. Oh, there now. See, he wasn't vamping in time. What are you looking at there?
He's on mute too, which is the best part.
Oh, that's even better. I don't have him muted. I can't unmute my guest's mic because they chose to mute.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I'm pretty cheap to buy drinks for also because I don't drink. So, and also I'd probably go to bed before most people would hit the bar. So,
I'll buy you a nice glass of warm milk.
We're out of coffee. Let's drink this warm cream.
That's not the weirdest thing I've seen people drink at a convention.
What is the weirdest thing you've seen someone drink at a convention?
Yeah, you can't just open that up.
What was it? We were all at KillerCon in 2019, and it was when they were doing those hot pepper eating contests. Remember that?
Yeah.
They were drinking that milk mixed with their own sweat.
Oh. Yeah, that's fair.
Buckets.
So, Gavin. Matt Wilderson says, heck yeah, Gavin, congrats,
Thanks,
buddy.
Matt.
So your story is called Lay, Lie, Lie. So first of all, I think you're very well known. I think your dick is even better known.
I forgot all
I'm
about
30, and this is still just the pinnacle of my achievements.
Wait,
What
what's
did you-
happening?
Oh, Kayleigh has
Oh,
no.
Kayleigh
Kayleigh,
doesn't know
it-
the Gavin's dick story. Well, who should tell it?
Cause I'm gonna let you regale the tale on this one.
Oh well, all I know of it is
Yeah,
when
I'll go for it. I'll go
when-
for it.
Gavin, do
yeah.
tell.
Oh, okay, Gavin. Yeah.
Oh, it's nice to meet you, Gavin.
Oh,
Go
yes,
ahead
nice
and tell
to
me
meet
the
you as
dick
well.
story.
Let's talk about my genitals. So, a few years back, I had realized I was kind of had become stagnant. Sweat, milk sweat. Yeah, but I had become stagnant in my writing. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to start writing a chapter at a time. I'm just going to put it online. But I knew that unless I thought someone was reading it, I wouldn't keep up with it. So I decided to buy an advertisement on the then active podcast, The Horror Show with Brian Keene. However, I can't do anything just normal. For some reason, that's something my brain will not allow. It just tears at every fiber of my being. So instead, I wrote an advertisement about my penis, which vaguely promoted the book, but obviously not enough because people still know me for my reproductive organs. But it's nice to be known for something, I guess. I think that the part that kills me though is I wasn't paying attention to what episode I booked the ad for, and I booked it for a live charity fundraiser episode.
For like children of sexual abuse or
No,
something.
for like birth victims, and I'm just
Yeah.
you're talking about my junk.
And it's been like what 5 years, and we're still telling this story.
Yeah, like I said, it's nice to be known. I'll give that much. But
Yeah, if that doesn't draw attention to you, what will?
well, getting stuff published helps. So that's kind of
that's what we in the business call a segue, huh, Gavin?
Oh yes. Hey, it is. It is 11
so-
where you are. I'm sure you're ready to get through the rest of this table of contents.
I know Kayleigh is. I could do this all night. I love attention.
I've got a
yeah.
dog with a UTI that needs to go out at some point. So
Okay. So yeah, why don't you tell it? Okay, so now everybody knows about your dick. Do you want to say anything about yourself, or just go right into the story?
yeah. Well, I'll just So I'm Gavin. I have been writing for a bit, but this year's kind of like I had to stop and look at kind of a lot of the projects that I'd been keeping on the back burner of just like it's done, it's saved, but I'm not pushing it out there. And so this year has been kind of reevaluating and getting into submitting to anthologies and such. And I actually was hesitant to submit to this anthology. Reason being, I loved Perfectly Fine House. I thought that I really enjoyed the idea of this world where ghosts are commonplace and how that affects so many facets of society. I work with a lot of public policy stuff related to people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So a lot of times I'm looking at those different systems and groups, and I found this idea to be a real appealing lens for the world. So, but I was hesitant to submit because Stephen and I had already been working on something, and I felt like, does Stephen want to put up with me more? And also I didn't want it to look like I just got in because I'm friendly with Stephen. But I mean, that's a topic that's been addressed earlier in this call, presentation, live, whatever. So yeah, I went ahead and went for it, and but it wasn't until about 2 weeks before the call closed that I actually started. And it was just because I had this idea nagging at me about the initial idea was, what would elder abuse look like in this world? And that was the initial idea was, how would that manifest could you, in particular, thinking about kind of the elder abuse that occurred to Stan Lee when he was in his later years and his manager was pushing him out to conventions where he had to be reminded where he was. And I was thinking about how might someone exploit a deceased relative as a means to make money. And so that's kind of the catalyst of the story, Lay Lie Lie.
Yeah, so you've got your Elvis character and your Colonel character.
Yeah, and that was kind of how I looked at it. It focuses on father and son, Chet and Charles. I know it's bad form to have two characters with similar letter name starts, but I also know that people tend to name children with some sort of system in place. So I stuck with that. But essentially, Charles is well known for within the true crime community for some alleged murders, and Charles is kind of trying to flip that true crime community into a means of income. And it really explores the kind of placating nature and relationship between a father who feels he may not have been the best dad that he could have been. And so it focuses on their relationship in that.
It was quite out of the box for the theme, Gavin.
Yeah. Gavin, I absolutely loved your story. I thought it was great. And out of all the ones we received, I was like, this one is the one that I could see the most out of taking place within the same universe.
And thanks. And that's because I thought there was so much fun to play with. And for those who, if you perchance are watching this and haven't read the novel, while this story is standalone from the novel, you will understand it a lot better if you've read the novel. And yeah, there's so much of this world that I was looking at. You've got the whole component with surrogates for physical intimacy between a living person and one who's deceased. You've got the one thing that always stuck with me was that most of the politicians are all ghosts at this point, and that they have an overwhelming kind of grip on political success because there's a bunch more ghosts who are voting for them. And I was just looking at all these different facets, and I was like, there is so much within the systems of the world that we haven't, or that hasn't even been, addressed in the novel, because there's only so much world building you can do in a novel before you're just writing an instruction manual for the world.
Yeah. One of the things I enjoyed in yours, I had to invite my partner in because she's formerly a florist. And when you were talking about the sage bars, and you went way, way, way down deep, and I think you had a college town, this sage bar. Oh, this is the fancy sage bar. I had to call her, and I'm like, what are all these plant names? Are these supposed to be capitalized or what? I really enjoyed that part.
That was based out of my my coffee love. Is I was kind of looking at it, and the town where I grew up, Murfreesboro, there's a coffee shop there called Brass Horn that I still think it's better than almost everything else I've been to. And I'm trying to think of how to put this in terms for people to understand. But basically, I was looking at the sage bar and the way that coffee beans will be grown in one country, and that they'll have certain flavor characteristics, and then some people are like, oh, I prefer this process coffee, this process, I prefer darker roast, lighter roast. And I was looking at that, and I'm like, well, sage is bound to be very similar at that point. I wouldn't think that sage. I mean, the way you had sage written in the novel was more like weed, which I know people also have their preferred strands and stuff. And so it felt like I needed to read up on a bunch of stuff about sage and just go nerdy with it.
I prefer the Jeff Strand.
I saw that pun floating out there.
All right, Matt says, great presentation, everyone. I have to put the baby to bed and then myself. Congratulations to everyone. Kayleigh, I hope you get some sleep before the sun rises. Is the sun rising?
Not for about an hour and a half, I'd say.
The sun never
South
sets
Wales.
on Wales.
Oh, you believe it exists now, do you? He's been claiming that Wales doesn't exist since I met him.
Well, it does. It's a magical fantasy.
Exist. I've seen them at SeaWorld.
Well done.
Thank you.
And I'm a whale
you, Matthew.
biologist. Sean Stanford says of Gav's story, this sounds great. I'm looking forward to reading it.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks, man. We're really excited. Happy to have you, and we're going to pop you back out and finish out this table of contents.
Later,
Gavin. Good to see you, man.
Okay, folks, so that's the end of our special guests, but don't everybody go run away. We are going to have a Q&A portion, and Gav, if you want to take your dog out and, that kind of thing, that's fine. I don't feel like I should have had to tell you that, but we're going to have the Q&A portion, so start putting your questions in now. But we have 3 more stories to get through on this table of contents, like we said, 15. So the next one is back to me, and I either really planned this out right or wrong, depending on how you look at it, but I don't think I've explained any of the stories so far, except maybe my own. The next story is called Playthings by Kay Hanifen, who is not a debut author, but she's got a few things under her belt. And Playthings was another one of the takes, along with Addict to Slaughter, on serial killers. And while Addict to Slaughter was about literally a serial killer, what Kay did with this story was she ported the concept of serial killers, or maybe the emotional background of a serial killer, into the Perfectly Fine universe. So in this story, the sort of person that we would look at that way, if you just killed a bunch of people, it'd be like misdemeanors. It'd be like, that guy's like got a bunch of DUIs, So she said what those sorts of people do in this universe is they kidnap people and they keep them and they torture them. So this is another one of our more splattery entries, along with J.C. Smith's. Yeah, the Blue Mausoleum. This was one of the more splattery entries, which we were discussing before the stream started. But yeah, really brutal beginning. Very visceral, scary story. I think that was one of the few that we all agreed upon without too much fighting. So we're really excited to have Kay and her story, Playthings. And the penultimate, I know Gavin would yell at me if I don't use that word correctly. The penultimate entry, we're going to hand it over to Wile E, and this is The Perfectly Fine Storm by DC Hill.
So I don't know a lot about DC Hill. The name was unfamiliar to me. The story, though, was one of the reasons I liked it in my initial read through was that it was different than the other stories. Like we said, we have those similar categories: ghost detectives, serial killers. This was similar to Gavin's in that it explored another facet of the universe, specifically when it came to like suburbs and gated communities, like keeping ghosts out of a certain area, specifically that these people, they build this gated community. They're all newly built houses that no one's ever died in, so no one can haunt them. And they have like a ghost watchman at the gate who's like, Billy Bob, the fisherman who drowned across in the private pond, needs to get in. Do you let him? And no, keep him out. And from there, it's about these people. It's hard to describe without giving anything away. Just we go from there to home invasion, and it was very dark and had a kind of a gothic-y atmosphere, hence the storm. From that point, it was a great read.
Yeah, it was a great story.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this one. Oh, Bill says Billy Bob Fisherman, the audacity. Well, yeah, where did you get that name?
I looked over at the comments. I was like, whose name could be a profession?
Okay, so get those questions in because we are up to our final story, the big closer. I'm not going to say how I felt about it, but I felt really positively about it. And the final entry in the Perfectly Fine Neighborhood. And I told you in the beginning, we started with the first ghost. We're ending with The Last Word by Mrs. Kayleigh Dobbs.
Oh, that's one of the first times I've been referred to as Mrs. I got married a month ago, for those who don't know. It's very exciting for me.
And this is your first. This will be your first publication. We don't talk about her marriage to Bill, okay? No, just to confirm, this is your first publication under the new pen name.
Yeah, so I was going by Kayleigh Marie Edwards before, and it's always bothered me. It's too long. I tried Kayleigh Edwards, but that didn't sound good. And then I thought, my married name sounds nicer. So, and I haven't had anything published in a few years, so I thought I'll just change it now when it's not going to be a big deal in the midst of publishing loads of things. So I'm really excited. And this story, firstly, I'm really honored to be in this anthology, by the way, because I really love the novel. So I've always said it's such a great idea for a ghost story. It's so different to anything I've ever read. So it was really fun to get to write something that was like set in the world of and use those rules. And the story is about a twin sister sibling rivalry that goes quite awry, and it starts in childhood and then just escalates for decades. And it was partially based on true events. I mean,
it was
the ending, but I tried to be like a little funny with it, but some of the stupid petty rivalry stuff was just me sort of reiterating things that my sister and I used to do when we were kids.
So not the big stuff.
Not the big no,
Okay.
not the big stuff. Just like the petty squabbling stuff. But when we were kids, we hit an age where we just would not stop fighting because there's 2 years age difference between us. And if my mum heard us arguing, I think she just got to the end of her rope with that after a while. So if she heard us arguing, we were both in big trouble, and we get split into separate rooms and just have to sit on chairs and do nothing for an hour. And my mum said that was like the worst possible punishment for me because I was a busy child, apparently. So things like we started fighting quietly so that my mum wouldn't know. We would do things to each other like turn each other's clothes inside out, or take each other's posters off the wall and put them back on the ceiling, or something stupid like that. So that was like the initial idea for the story. And then I just kept going with it and thought, if we were less sane people, how far would that go? So I just took that idea and ran with it. And really excited that you liked it. So yeah.
I did. Now, was the birthday fairy real?
The birthday, so I mentioned the birthday fairy, and that the mum of this story makes a massive effort to make special occasions like super special when you're kids. The birthday fairy wasn't real, but my mum was there. You heard this story at my wedding, Stephen, about how fond I am of Christmas, but because Christmas wouldn't really be a thing in this world because like the religion isn't so much of a thing there, I swapped it to Birthday Fairy, but my mum used to go to great lengths to make sure that I believed in Santa well past the age that I should have stopped believing in Santa. Like she once got a neighbor to, we had like a terraced house, and the attic, there was no like divide in the attic, so we could just go into the next neighbor's attic, and she got a neighbor to crawl into our attic and clump around up there once like they were reindeer on the roof. The year that I said, I don't think Santa's real, and then I was like, oh, he's here. So yeah.
Yeah, the story I heard at your wedding was that you still believed in Santa. What's the drinking age in the UK?
No.
When you were 19 or something?
I was in my early 20s, actually. And
your early 20s.
I didn't still believe in Santa, but I'm 36 years old now, and I have still, to this day, never managed. No, but I'm still so excited about Christmas that I haven't ever slept on Christmas Eve. I just lie there awake all night, waiting for Christmas morning to come. And got excited talking about Christmas and hit the table leg. And I have been known to wake up my entire family, like turn up at my mum's house at 5 a.m. to wake everyone up for the day.
You had a much different, view of Santa than I did.
I love Santa.
So Christmas is a lot like Perfectly Fine Neighborhood announcement night for you, right? You just stay up all night, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what happens. Yeah, I'm with Eric. What are you saying?
Eric wants to know what you're saying about Santa.
Yeah, we won't stand for this, Wiley.
Oh no, I'm not saying that you had the perfect. See, my dad told me that if I was bad, Santa would stuff me in a bag and take me back to the North Pole and turn me into a toy. So Santa was a figure of fear,
which is where Catfish in the Cradle came from, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Santa is a huge part of Catfish.
Well, they stuff people in bags, don't they?
Yeah.
You didn't even put it together till now. I had to explain your childhood trauma to you.
Yeah, thanks.
And I'm not even a therapist, but speaking of therapists, that's another one of those things we call a segue. Or I'm sorry, Kayleigh, did you have anything else you wanted to say about the last word?
No. I'm if I talk too much, I'll start giving spoilers accidentally, so I'll just stop there. But I hope everyone likes it.
It's good. It's good. So we have a question for JC Smith, so I'm going to bring JC back in there.
Awesome.
Can you hear us, JC?
Again. Yeah, y'all are great.
Great. Okay, so this question is from Riker.
Okay.
And Riker asks, what are some of the ways you get into your characters' heads?
Ooh. Oh man. Probably the strongest and easiest way is music. I'm a little bit notorious. Like I have a co-author actually who we're writing a fantasy, and I will make playlists for days. So for this one, I was like, well, what is a good like mood for it? And so I ended up going with like kind of backwater, indie, acoustic, real slow, like not even dance song, but just real like. I started watching a lot of Westerns to just kind of get that like dark, heavy, like uncomfortable warmth sort of feeling going on. And so that really helped get in Dallin's head. And I found this one song in particular, I think called Spite from Vanderveer. And I was listening to it and it literally has lines like, I think it's, he killed his son to spite the dog. Like that's the whole tone of the song. It's like doing all these weird bad things out of spite. I'm like, that sounds like the main character, Dallin, who's very much like not necessarily F everything, but very much kind of like in himself, distant from the world that he lives in because he can't see ghosts. And so there's this kind of like this really prickly front that he puts on. So that music was very helpful to me for getting that feeling of who Dallin is and how he reacts to things.
Steve, you're muted.
Oh, that's right. You muted.
Oh, I thank you for the heads up. I said thanks for popping back on.
Yeah.
And we're gonna throw you back into the green room. Okay. So we are officially into the Q&A portion. If I didn't mention it, our next question, and can somebody ask if Gavin wants to do a concert or something? Okay. Our next question is from Bill. He says, I can't wait for this. Such a wonderful combination of flavors of horror, like a menu at a good restaurant. My first question is, are you hoping to continue this series?
I don't think we left it able to continue.
We could have another antho, or we could have a prequel.
Yeah.
Well, I will tell you, Bill, the answer to that is the answer that I always give to this question, which is if it is financially worth it. So if this turns out to be our biggest release and we make tons of money, everybody buys the anthology, of course, we will definitely go back to that cash cow. And I say this partially jokingly, but not really. People often ask me to write sequels, and I usually say, why would I write the sequel when nobody bought the original? So yeah, I'm working on a sequel to the Hematophages because that was one of my, better selling stories and that kind of thing. And I would suspect, Wile E, you're kind of the same way because you've already done a sequel for Magpie, which I think is one of your more popular ones, right?
Yep. I'm definitely the same way. If people enjoy it and it does well, then yeah, sequels are always forthcoming. Perfectly Fine Perfectly Fine Subdivision, The Search for More Money.
I was thinking of the Perfectly Fine Village or something. Second question. Why was I frozen in terror and not capable of submitting the story I wrote for this? So I know you're joshing, Bill, but you gotta get out there. I suspect a lot of our over the transom submissions were not expecting to get picked up. Some of them did, some of them didn't. You just gotta throw that spaghetti against the wall. You just gotta take your shot.
Some of them had to be, encouraged to do so.
Oh, Gavin recommends the Perfectly Fine Homeowners Association. I should probably stop saying things that are in the private chat, but some of them are far too clever.
Do you know what you guys should do? The Perfectly Fine Space Station.
We did hint at that at the end of the novel. Yeah. It'll be like our Alien Covenant.
You just said that to hurt me. I don't know what I've ever done to deserve it.
Okay, Christina Pfeiffer asks, question, I'm not sure if I missed it or not, is there a possible release date? Our release date is supposed to be, is supposed to be October 1st. But that is highly dependent on when we see Auld Lang Syne. And yeah, so no, the release date, I am confident in still saying it will be October 1st. The only thing I'm not willing to promise right now is that the Kickstarter backers will get it before October 1st. I was trying to arrange it so that the Kickstarter backers would all be doing their fancy Instagram. Oh, look what I got a couple of weeks before release. It's going to be tight, but I think wide release will still be October 1st. Eric Smith wants to know if there's actually a Santa Claus. Sean says, question, can people still contribute to the Kickstarter? That's a no. It closed October 31st.
Now, Sean, next week when I see you, you can certainly donate, to the Perfectly Fine, welfare fund.
I was gonna say the Perfectly Fine kickback fund.
Perfectly Fine snack fund.
Yes, it's all Jaffa cakes. Okay, we're gonna skip over Bill again. Sorry, Bill. You know why I keep doing this. Amanda, looking forward to this. Good night. Thanks so much, Amanda. We really appreciate your support. Amanda, of course. Oh, I'm gonna boondoggle it. What is the name of her novel? Anyway, look up Amanda Headley. I think she's only got the one out. Okay, it sounds like somebody's furiously looking it up, but it's that great Wendigo novel. Thanks so much for your support, Amanda.
Till we become monsters.
Is that?
Yeah,
thank you for your support. Till we become monsters, or
Till We
that's the
Become
name of
Monsters
Amanda?
is the name of her novel.
Okay, great. Eric says all the stories sound fantastic. They are. And the perfectly fine cul-de-sac. It ends here. Okay. Oh, we lost
Sean.
Candace, but let's answer on her behalf and make up what we think would be her answer. Sean says, question for Candace. With your story being so personal, was it difficult getting into that emotional space, and how did you keep yourself well? We did let Candace go. She had some other business to attend to. I was kind of joshing, but I guess I don't feel comfortable answering that question. For myself, and I guess Wile E and Kayleigh can talk about that. I know Kayleigh's working on a novel now as well. It's tough because sometimes you're opening up old wounds. And I find that some of my best stuff comes from trauma. If I can tap into it. No need to say sorry, Sean. We didn't publicly announce it, but you caught us out. So yeah, Hemingway said bleed on the page and all that sort of thing. And I do find sometimes that is when I do my best work, but it is troubling, and it's hard to say whether it's a chicken and egg thing about why so many writers are troubled. Is it because they do that, or do they write because they're troubled? It's hard to say. But do you guys have any thoughts about that, getting into difficult emotional spaces?
My only thing, I don't have any difficult emotional spaces. Like, you've known me for many years. I don't have a filter. I'll tell you anything you want to know. So to me, it's not as difficult. It's what happened. So we'll just tell what happened.
Yeah, I write either sort of comedy horror stuff, like lighter stuff, or I write straight up horror. And I have been told that some of my sort of straight horror stuff is quite like emotionally brutal, which I didn't realize until I'd released a few stories. But I usually do find myself in kind of a low mood when I've been writing that stuff, which is probably why I've veered more towards making myself laugh when I'm dredging up stupid sibling rivalry stuff and things, stuff that makes me laugh. We've been leaning more into that recently.
Yeah, and sometimes it can be cathartic to rewrite the endings of stuff like that.
Do you guys ever sometimes like write something and it's it's like you've written something serious, and then when you're done you're like, oh, that's what that was about? Like you've written thematically and not noticed until afterwards.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And sometimes it'll be not till I'm like telling a story about my childhood or something, like many moons later, I'll be like, oh shit, that's what Billy and the Clonosaurus was about, or something.
Yeah.
All right, so that seems to be all the questions, and we seem to be a pretty good stopping point. But I think let's bring our guests back on for one final curtain. Don't you dare put it away, Gavin. I swear to God, if you put it away, I will kill you. Get it back. God damn it. All right. You have a minute to bring it back. All right. So, JC Smith, thanks so much for stopping by, JC. We're really looking forward to having you.
Thank you.
And Zach Rosenberg. Thanks so much for your contribution, man. Thanks for coming out tonight as well.
Absolutely, guys. Well, it was perfectly adequate hanging out with you guys.
It's perfectly
How about one?
You have made me eat that blurb ever since I gave it to you.
All right.
See,
Thank
man.
you. Thank you, counselor. And Mr. Jeff Strand, thank you so much for staying with us.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Not Jeff.
And ladies and gentlemen, it would not be a Perfectly Fine Neighborhood talk announcement, apparently, without the musical stylings of Mr. Gavin
No, that's not what I'm
Dillinger.
doing. I'm in an apartment.
Freebird.
I'm not. I can't plug in at 11 o'clock.
What do you want to hear, Kayleigh?
Mustang Sally?
That's the easy one.
I genuinely don't know that song.
How about Row, Row, Row Your Boat?
Meow Mix song.
It's just way too advanced for me.
All right. Well, anyway, Gavin, thank you for your non-musical contributions.
I was just standing by, man. Just standing by in case I was needed.
All right. Well, you were much needed. Thanks so much.
Laters.
See you, man.
Okay. Oh, something involving a penis. Are there any good penis songs?
Let's not venture into that territory.
Led Zeppelin, All of Your Love, or give me every inch of your love.
That's actually what I thought you were talking about, Steve, when you told Gavin not to put it away because we couldn't see him. And I was like,
no one else could see him. So.
Yeah, after the Dick story, I was like,
you guys can't see him.
No.
Oh, okay. Okay. Detachable penis. Is that a song, Sean? Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, next Published Like a Motherfucker will be Gavin playing Every Inch of Your Love by Led Zeppelin. Oh, I think this might be a relative based on the wife's name that we said earlier. Donna says, "Don't let Wile E fool you. He could." I did not know this. You can sing?
Nope, I cannot sing. Not one bit.
What, were you in like the church choir or something?
Nope, that was one of the things that my mother knew was a bad idea to put me in.
Okay.
Nope, we're not singing. No singing. Not a bit.
I hear there was an hour of karaoke attached to this live. What?
He's the one that can sing. Kaz can sing. I cannot.
I like to make an ass of myself in public, but I cannot sing. I love karaoke, but that does not mean I can sing. Speaking of church choirs, Kayleigh, I picked up God Bomb on your recommendation not too long ago. I think you also told me that some British accents were harder to listen to than others. Did you listen to the audiobook version of God Bomb?
No.
This has been a tricky one for me.
Really? I don't know who did the audiobook.
I don't know, but it's hard for me to understand, and that doesn't usually happen to me. But I'm trying. It's a Kit Power, so it's good, huh?
Yeah, I love Kit Power.
Yeah. Eric recommends that Gavin sing My Ding-a-Ling. Now Gavin's got something else. Gavin's got his freaking dog. The only guy who hasn't left the stream. Now you've got your dog.
I don't know what I'm supposed to believe. This is the one who doesn't have a UTI. This is Birdie.
How many dogs and guitars and shit do you have in your apartment?
Still 2 dogs.
Gavin.
I went to a dog park and someone abandoned her, so I took her. So now I've got 2.
All right.
And she just likes to be held like a baby.
There you go. All right. Well, encore. All right. Thanks everybody for coming on.
Yes.
We're really looking forward to getting this out to you. As soon as we get the last story in, we will. But thanks for tuning in tonight. From everybody at French Press, Via con Dios. Wait, what was the thing we decided we were going to start saying? Oh, stay splattery. What do you say? What do you Happy Goat say when you sign off?
Oh, bleat.
Oh, that's good.
I don't have a sign off yet.
A traditional Welsh goodbye.
I don't know. Yeah, what's goodbye?
Bleat.
Bleak.
Yeah, makes sense. Oh, stay splattery. So stay splattery, everybody.
Mine is stay sleazy. See ya.
Stay classy.
Yeah.